Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to a Raw Law Unfiltered with your host of the DUI Guy Plus. Today, we are going to continue with the Johnny Depp United Kingdom trial saga. I apologize for the long delay. Some of you that had to wait for me to continue this, but as you all know, life sometimes gets in the way. So, without further ado, where did we leave off? If you remember, the last time we convened, Johnny Depp was still on the witness stand. He's being cross examined by defense counsel, Ms. Was, and I like to call her Ms. Wasp because she is feisty. She is really, really, really feisty. Give me 1 second. I just wanted to adjust my microphone. Um, yeah, she was apparently, and somebody shared this with me. I don't remember who. It may have been you, Denise, actually. Apparently, Ms. Was has been in some trouble with the crown, interestingly enough. Um, she has prosecuted some Nigerian I forget what it was, but basically she was a prosecutor in a case, and she got caught like mishandling evidence, hiding evidence on multiple cases, not just that one, but that was like the biggest one. And it was basically a lot of malicious prosecution, a lot of dirty dealing, a lot of dirty, dirty, dirty stuff from this woman. You can all look this up. I just can't find it in my history right now. I could have sworn that I opened it like maybe a week ago, but anyway, it is atrocious. It is really, really bad. Like Ms. Was is a class A unethical individual. And now we get to continue in that light. We get to continue reading the transcript, listening to her questions, asking Johnny Depp about the events. I mean, that's rough. You know what I'm saying? That is rough. But it's going to be a good time. For us, at least. Definitely not for Johnny. So here we are, Wednesday, July 8th. This is day 2. We are back with John Christopher Depp recalled. Cross-examination by Ms. Was continued. Judge Nickel. Mr. Sherborne, were you able to take instructions from Mr. Depp on the 6th and 7th witness statements? I was, my lord, yes. And have you had a word with Ms. Was about whether you need to examine in chief about that before she continues her cross-examination? To be honest, I have not, and that is partly because as a result of the earlier starts, there is a lot of setting up to be done, but we're also waiting for Ms. Laws. I'm sorry that Ms. Laws is not here, but we are going to continue. I understand that, my lord. I'm trying to explain why there's a certain amount of time taken up trying to work out where she is, because this is very uncharacteristic that she is not here. So his co-counsel is not there. I have not had an opportunity to do so. My present understanding is that I'm not going to be asking any further questions. All right. There we are. If I can leave it on that basis, my lord, asks Mr. Sherborne. Good. All right, Ms. Was. I said yesterday that I would be minded to take a break in the middle of the morning. Yes, I appreciate that Mr. Depp has been giving evidence and will have been giving evidence for some time. Yes, answers Ms. Was. When the morning is going to be 3 hours, I think it is only fair to him that we take a break, but the timing of the break I will leave to you. Thank you very much. Whenever is convenient in your cross-examination. Thank you very much. But if you plan at about 11:30, if you can plan around about 11:30, roughly speaking, thank you very much. Yes. Good. Yes, responds the judge. Mr. Depp, I'm going to ask you now about some events in March 2013. All right? Ms. Was asks Johnny Depp. Yes. But before I do, can you just answer this question, yes or no? Were you taking cocaine? I mean, she just fucking leads with it. Again, this woman is just no scruples. How do you lead with that? Were you taking cocaine in March 2013? It is very difficult to recollect if I was taking cocaine in March 2013. It is possible. You do not remember, but it is possible. I do not remember. All right. The first time Ms. Heard met the monster was in early 2013 when you and she were in her house together. And I'm going to ask you some questions about that. Yes. Do you accept that you spent some time in her house in Orange Avenue, was it? Yes. Before she moved into the Eastern Columbia building? Yes. She lived there with her sister Whitney? There was a period, yes, where her sister lived there. And you and Whitney got on very well together? Yes. At that time? Yes. And Whitney would really act as an intermediary between the two of you if you had an argument in this sort of period? She has attempted to act as an intermediary, yes. Right. A number of times. All right. I think you felt so close to Whitney at that stage that you saved her telephone number in your phone as Sis? Yes. You called her Sis? Yes. She was not your sister. She was Ms. Heard's sister, but she was family as far as you felt at that time. Yes. Now, you, in March of 2013, I suggest, objection, speculation, were taking cocaine and you had fallen off the wagon. You know what I mean by that. It is an expression that you used yesterday? Indeed, yes. You were taking both drink and recreational drugs, in particular cocaine, in March 2013. If you say that is, Judge interrupts. That is a question, Mr. Depp. I'm sorry. Again, I do not remember if I was taking cocaine. All right. You have had a tattoo. I think you have a number of tattoos, but I want to ask you about one particular tattoo that you had put on one of your arms, I think, when you were having a relationship with Winona Ryder. Yes, ma'am. After you separated from Winona Ryder, you changed the tattoo, read Winona Forever. Yes. And after you separated from Ms. Ryder, you took the last syllable from her name, and it was Wino Forever. And that is how it read? Yes. That presumably was a joke when you did it at the time. It seemed to be. When did you have that tattoo shortened? Excuse me. When did you have that tattoo shortened? The name shortened? Was it years and years ago? Yes, many years ago. I'm not going to trouble you with the exact date. By March 2013, you had made an attempt at detox because we know about your text between Elton John and Charlie Dunnett in 100 Days and all the rest of it. Yes. But by March 2013, you had fallen off the wagon. I appreciate you say you do not remember. Judge interrupts. I think Mr. Depp said that he did not remember if he was taking cocaine in March 2013. I'm not sure if he answered specifically as to whether he had fallen off the wagon. Ms. Wass, all right. Do you remember whether you had fallen off the wagon in March 2013, Mr. Depp? Yes, I had fallen off the wagon. You had fallen off the wagon, and how did that fall take place? What were you taking that was not part of your detox regime? I took to drinking whiskey. All right, so it was just whiskey or any other, and wine. And you are still not sure about the cocaine, yes? I'm really not sure. And you were drinking on this occasion that I'm about to ask you about. Ms. Let me just establish this. When you fall off the wagon, as we have been calling it, do you feel very disappointed in yourself? Of course. And you do not really like to have your nose rubbed in it that you have failed, do you? Well, I suppose the image of having my nose rubbed in something is, I would say, not a very nice way of dealing with someone. Especially if you think that they have a drink problem. Rubbing their noses in it, in my opinion, is the wrong way to go. That is what people have done with dongs for years. Okay, let us agree to this way of putting it, that you were sensitive, having fallen off the wagon, and felt that it was rather unkind to make a point of reminding you that you had fallen off the wagon or laughing at you because you had fallen off the wagon. Well, it was most clear that I'd fallen off the wagon with regard to my relationship with Ms. Heard at the time in March 2013. I believe that the day you are referring to is when we were at her apartment. Shall I ask you the questions rather than you anticipating what they're going to be? But you're absolutely right. Oh, good. It was when Ms. Heard laughed at the tattoo, which read wino forever, because at that stage, you in effect were acting like a wino, like an alcoholic, and you felt very sensitive about that. Do you agree? I would say that initially I was, of course, very disappointed in myself after 160 something days, whatever it was, that I had broken my sobriety. I'm asking you about Ms. Heard laughing at the tattoo in the extent of you having broken your sobriety. Yes, ma'am, and I am answering you. Mr. Depp, you are going over something that we have passed. I am sorry to have keep you to this point, but as my lord said yesterday, I have a lot of ground to cover, and it would certainly help the court if you answered the question specifically rather than cover the answer to previous questions. I understand that can sometimes be difficult for someone who's not used to court arrangements. However, I'm going to cut in if I think you're going to be going off on a bit of a tangent. I hope you will forgive me. Certainly. May I say one thing? Could you answer the question, please? Can you repeat the question? The question was, do you accept that Ms. Heard was making a joke out of your tattoo, Wino Forever? I do not recall. You do not recall that? Any conversation or. And I suggest that that provoked disappointment, first of all, in you, and then anger in you. But you do not remember the incident, as you cannot say? I do not recall any argument about any of my tattoos. All right, I'm going to put my case, unless Mr. Sherborne objects. You then, Mr. Depp, slapped Ms. Heard across the face. It was the first time that you had ever used violence against her. That is not correct. That is untrue. As you can appreciate, I'm putting what I suggest happened, and as my lord said yesterday, you have to say something. So if it is untrue, if that is your account, that is a perfect answer to deal with that. It did not happen. That is what you are saying. You slapped her more than once because after you slapped her the first time, she did not react. She eyeballed you. She just stared at you and then made you more angry, and you slapped her again. That is patently untrue. This happened in exactly the same way a third time. So altogether, you slapped her 3 times on that occasion at her house in Orange Avenue. I'm sorry, but that is not true. You are mistaken. I understand what you were saying. Very soon, you came to your senses. It was an outburst, and like she ignores everything he says. This is incredible. I understand what you were saying, but I'm going to completely ignore it because very soon you came to your senses. It was just an outburst of anger on your part. And very soon you came to your senses and you realized what you had done and you broke down. You broke down and you started crying and you started apologizing and you told her that you would never hit her again. I did not hit Ms. Heard. You explained to her, I suggest, that this sudden loss of temper was not you, but it was your sickness. Is that how you sometimes blame your behavior on an illness or a sickness? No, ma'am. You told her, I suggest, for the first time about the person you had been calling the monster, your alter ego, the person who took over when you were under the influence of drink or drugs. No, ma'am. Now, Miss Heard explained to you at some stage during the relationship that she knew all about your addiction because her father, indeed, also her mother, had been drug abusers. Judge interrupts. Just a minute. Do you agree that is what is said to you? That is what she said to you? I do. Yes. Ms. Heard did say to me that her father had. Yes, you became quite close to her father. You were in touch with him over various critical points of your relationship with Ms. Heard, were you not? Asks Ms. Was. I was very close with her father and very close with her mother. Yes. You knew that David Heard had a problem with drug addiction. You discussed it with him. Yes. Ms. Heard explained to you, not in the presence of her father, that she had seen her father try to get clean And she knew how difficult it could be. And she felt, Ms. Heard, could help you. That is what she said to you, was it not? That she could help you with multiple addiction problems. I do not recall that she said she could help me. You actually did want somebody to give you support, did you not? With your sobriety problems or lack of sobriety problems, I suppose. I had some very good friends who had been who had been sober for many, many years. So I sought counsel from friends who had been through the same thing that I had been through, similar things. In your witness statement, and my lord, it is paragraph 18D. I will read it out to you unless you want to check I'm reading it correctly. But I'm sure Mr. Sherborne will correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you. What you said was this, quote, I'm in recovery from drug addiction during significant parts of my marriage to Amber. Instead of supporting my sobriety, she often encouraged me to drink alcohol and take drugs, even though she knew my relationship with alcohol and drugs was a difficult one, end quote. And then you go on at paragraph 23, quote, she never supported me in my attempts to be strong and to avoid drugs and alcohol, end quote. Do you maintain those statements are true? Do you want me to take one at a time? I would say that at the time Ms. Heard was not, there was no mention of me having a problem with drink, as the whiskey that I was drinking in Ms. Heard's apartment was in her freezer. Just a second, I'm going to stop you. I'm terribly sorry. I wanted to, you are answering a question I did not ask. I should have been specific. It is part of the same, in your statement, you are not talking about March. So I have moved on from March 2013. Where are we now? To a general statement you made, which was, quote, I was in recovery from drug addiction during significant parts of my marriage to Amber, end quote. So I'm presuming you were talking about your whole relationship with Amber? All right, then yes. Am I right? These are your words in your statement. You said, I'm in recovery from drug addiction during significant parts of my marriage to Amber. Yes, ma'am. That is what you said. Yes. And that is true. That is true. Yes. Then, where I want your help, instead of supporting my sobriety, she often encouraged me to drink alcohol and take drugs, even though she knew my relationship with alcohol and drugs was a difficult one for me. Do you maintain that that was true? Yes. So you're saying she was actually encouraging you to fall off the wagon at times? I would say her actions were not of one who was supporting. All right, I understand that because you go on to say, quote, she never supported me in my attempt to be strong and to avoid drugs and alcohol, end quote. Yes. Is that true? It is. It is not true, is it? She never supported me? I am just reading the words so you can consider the answer. She never supported me? Ultimately, the answer I would say is no, she did not. She never supported you. I would say ultimately she did not. I suggest that that is not true, Mr. Depp. After this first time when you hit her and apologized and promised it would never happen again, she understood the problem of your drug taking and having background that she did have of a drug taking father. She was very much offering her help and support to you. I would say that if that was supportive, it was a strange way to support me. You would go around and take cocaine at her house, would you not? Sorry, I should have been specific. At Orange Avenue? Quite likely on occasion. Can we be quite clear? Miss Heard had told you that when she was 18, she was regularly taking cocaine. Do you remember that? Do you agree with that? I would agree with that. She told me she was 16. We need not dwell on whether she was 16 or 18. I'm terribly sorry. You're the one who asked me the question. She was worried about the cocaine habit that she had developed and she stopped altogether. Yes. And she never took cocaine ever in your presence or your company, as far as you knew, or as far as you knew during the time of your relationship. Yes, she did. Oh, you think she did? Judge interrupts. Just a moment. Ms. Heard did take cocaine in your presence? Johnny Depp. She said, she asked if Ms. Heard had ever touched cocaine, something to that effect. Ms. Was, maybe I should be more careful. No. I would like to say that she did because there were many times in our relationship early on where not only did she chop the cocaine with a razor blade into lines, she would then take the cocaine on her finger and rub it on her gums. I suggest that she never took cocaine after she stopped taking it as a teenager. But we have to disagree about that. My eyes have seen the action. All right. Now, there was an occasion. If you can take the text bundle at page 7, the text bundle in the first half of bundle 6, it is page 7 of the next bundle. Judge, I think it is tab 119, is it not? That is exactly right. What page are you saying, please? It is page 7. Does my lord have it? I do. The next second box down, Mr. Depp, there is a text from you to, among other names, Sis. Do you see that on the right hand side? I'm sorry, May 6th. Do you see where it says participants at the top box? Yes. The text I'm asking you about, the second line down, says Sis, and that is Whitney, is it not? Yes, it is. You had sent this text to Whitney on the 9th of March, and it says this, quote, "We had a slightly grim morning, just worried about her." Do you agree that you sent the text to Whitney and you were referring to Ms. Heard in that text? Yes. On the 12th of March, if we can can we go to page, would my lord give me a moment because there are references. I'm going to ask you to go to page 20 of the text schedule, and I'm going to explain something to the court. There is a series of 4 texts which are in the wrong chronological order. They can be found in another document, but rather just go to the documents. I'm going to deal with it this way because I think you're familiar with this exchange. Okay, here we go. On March 12th. So if you go to you have page 20 at the bottom, Mr. Depp? Yes, page 20. If you can go up 5, judge interrupts, 5 up from the bottom, so the one that says working mate, yes. No. Sorry. Well, I forget whether it's 4 or 5, but it is one below that. Just thought you should know? Yes, exactly. Yes. Okay. Do you see on the right-hand side, Mr. Depp, it says 3/12/2013? Yes, ma'am. In fact, that is a text exchange which took place on the 12th of March 2013. You know that what the text is about, the disco bloodbath text. I'm familiar with the disco bloodbath text. It is in a place because the day and the month has been put in the wrong way. It should be earlier in the bundle. If you need to see it in another format, I can show you. That is fine. Thank you. You sent a text to Ms. Heard. Just thought you should know there exists a book titled Disco Bloodbath. That is all. She said, we need that book. She then said, is it about last Friday night by chance? You said, how can you make me smile about such a hideous moment? Yes, it is. Funny bitch. Funny bitch. I fucking love you, you cunt. Those are texts sent between you and Ms. Heard on the 3rd of March. Do you agree with that? Yes, I do. All right. Can I ask you to look at bundle 6? Judge interrupts. I'm sorry. You said the 3rd of March? I'm sorry. 12th of March. It is a problem that seems to cause difficulties with the text because the 3 and the 12 have been put in different order. It would be the American way. Oh, now the judge is dissing Americans in the middle of their British trial? What the fuck? He actually said that? To do things out of order is the American way. Well, thanks, your lordness. Jeez. Ms. Was, exactly. But the text exists as an exhibit to Ms. Heard's statement. So we see the screenshot, but Mr. Depp is not challenging. I do not think that those texts were exchanged with Ms. Heard on the 12th of March. I am not challenging it. All right. Unless my lord wants me to. No, that is fine. Okay, Mr. Depp. You should have tab 6 because the texts are there. Could you go to 148F, please? It is in tab 6. I think mine finishes at 148E. So would this be in file 7, Mr. Depp? Do you have it there? I do. Just a moment. What is the page number that you want to refer to, please? Asks the judge. F894.261. I'm afraid something has happened to my bundles. I do not have that. I can see Ms. Wilson has found another copy. Thank you very much. I'm grateful. Hands it over to the judge. Do you have the page that Ms. Was is talking about, Mr. Depp? Yeah, yes, I do, Your Lordship. Do you recognize that kitchen top or not? Asks Ms. Was. I do not recognize this kitchen top. If I were to suggest to you that was a photograph taken on the 8th of March 2013 of your cocaine, lines of your cocaine, what would you say? I would wonder if it were mine. I would wonder why it is photographed. So, are you saying you cannot help us as to whether you recognize it or not? My question was, do you recognize the area where this was taken? I recognize that those appear to be lines of cocaine. I see a straw, a little a bindle, and I see clearly my credit card. Yes, so it looks like as if the credit cards may have had something to do with putting the lines of cocaine in that formation. Yes, it does. Do you recognize the work surface or tabletop? I'm sorry, I do not recognize it. Then I presume you cannot say the date in that case. You are not able to say whether you agree or whether it was March 8th. I'm not even able to say if that is cocaine or not. Okay, well, we'll have to draw our inferences from that in due course. Yes, ma'am. In the bedroom of the house that Ms. Heard shared with her sister Whitney in Orange Avenue in California was hung a painting by Ms. Heard's ex-partner, Tasia Van Ree. Yes, that is correct. You remember yesterday we looked at Tasia Van Ree and the arrest in Seattle and Ms. Van Ree's exoneration of Ms. Heard. Do you remember that? I do remember talk of Ms. Van Ree yesterday, yes. And Ms. Van Ree was an artist and had a painting that Ms. Heard kept in her bedroom hanging on the wall, yes? Yes. It had been there from the very first time you had visited Orange Avenue. Do you agree? It is something that she put up halfway through your visit. It has always been there? Yes, it was there. There was an occasion in March 2013 when you visited Ms. Heard at Orange Avenue. Whitney was not at home at the time, but it was an occasion when you arrived drunk and having consumed a cocktail of cocaine and cannabis. Do you remember an occasion when you arrived at Ms. Heard's house in that condition? Not offhand, no. Do you accept that you are a compulsive smoker of cigarettes? Yes, ma'am. I have a horrible addiction to nicotine. Yes. Judge interrupts. Just a moment. Yes. Ms. Was. You also had a horrible addiction to cocaine in March 2013, I would suggest. I have never had an addiction to cocaine. Did you have a little box, like a special cocaine box where you kept your cocaine? A special box for my cocaine? No, not necessarily. 2 inches square? I had a square box with a turquoise. It was a piece of turquoise on top, and that was used to carry extra meds in my pocket when I was away out about working. So you're describing a pill box. It is a pill box, yes. Okay, I am talking about a little antique. I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. When you talk about your meds, you're talking about your prescription medications, Mr. Depp? Asks the judge. Yes, exactly. Prescription medications in there. Ms. Waz continues. I understand. I am not talking about that. I am talking about a cocaine box, not prescription drugs. This was a square box with a skull and crossbows on it. Property of JD, quote unquote. It had something like that on it. Do you remember? I do not remember that particular description of that box. It is entirely possible, but I did not have any designated box for illegal substances. Do you think that as a result of the problems you have had with drink and controlled drugs and prescription drugs that your memory has been impaired? No, ma'am. You feel that you have absolute clarity of recollection, do you? Yes, ma'am. And you cannot remember this box? I have received a lot of gifts from people in my travels, people who have appreciated what I have done in my work, and they have given me presents. So there are boxes, bracelets. It is very difficult. Again, I have the picture. You have lots of gifts. You can interrupt me anytime you like. I do not want to do it if it is relevant to the case. Mr. Sherborne is looking after your interests admirably, but I do not want to try and make some progress, all right? I do want to make some progress. I was just trying to describe. I understand what you're trying to describe. Sorry. I am terribly sorry. Now, I suggest that throughout your relationship with Ms. Heard, you were irrationally jealous of Ms. Heard and regularly accused her of having affairs with other people. Just a minute, says the judge. What is your answer, Mr. Depp? There were times when I suspected that Ms. Heard was being untruthful with me, and there seemed to be at the time good reason for me to have to care about what her actions were. We read out in court yesterday Ellen Barkin's deposition. Do you remember? And she described you as jealous. Yes, she did. Would you describe yourself as jealous? Yes, I can be jealous. And on the night in March 2013 that I'm asking you about, you were very jealous and accusatory of Ms. Heard, suggesting she may be having or continuing her affair with Tasia Van Ree. It became an obsession of yours that night. Do you remember that? I remember we had several arguments about Ms. Van Ree. I will not elaborate. I will let you. All right. Do you remember an incident where you had an argument about Ms. Van Ree and reference was made to the painting that is hanging up in Ms. Heard's bedroom? Yes, I remember. Now I'm going to remind you what you said about it, and I'm going to suggest that something quite different happened. What you said was that you, at some point around that time, so this is March, I'm reading from your statement just so that you know. Now, yes. At some point around this time, I did ask Ms. Heard to remove a painting she had received from her former wife from the bedroom as a courtesy to me. I certainly did not hit Ms. Heard. All right. So you're saying that there was an incident when the painting was the subject of discussion. Yes, ma'am. In around March 2013, I will take your word on that date. That is what is referred to in your statement. I said March. Oh, okay. What you say in your statement is you certainly did not hit Ms. Heard on that date. All right? No, I did not. When you asked her to remove the painting, according to your recollection, what did she say? Ultimately, no. No, she was not going to do what you told her or asked her to do. Did you take no for an answer? Yes. You tried to remove the painting yourself, did you not? No, I did not. You tried to remove the painting and Ms. Heard intervened and you slapped her. That is not true. You took out your cigarette lighter you had been smoking all the way through the evening, I suggest, in the kitchen of that house. Do you accept that you smoked in Orange Avenue indoors? Yes, I do. You had your cigarette lighter with you and you tried to set fire to the painting. That is not true. And you were very physical with Miss Heard, pushing her about and grabbing her by the arm. That is also untrue. If you go behind, are you on divider 6? Yes. Go behind. There's a photograph exhibit A 148. Sorry, not 148. 148A. My fault. Judge, I think it is divider 148A. It is actually divider 148A. No. That is not what I'm asking about. Ms. Hamer has reminded me, and I want the very first photograph in 148. It should be of Ms. Heard taking a photograph in the mirror with a visible bruise on her arm. I'm going to ask somebody to assist me in finding this picture, says the judge. I can give you mine if you like. No, that is all right. I want to make sure I understood what the question is about. So this is now page, F894.001. Do you remember Mr. Depp causing any injury to Miss Heard's arm? No, ma'am, I do not. I suggest when you said you had clear memories of events with Ms. Heard, that quite the opposite is in fact true. You would regularly behave in a way you forgot how you behaved. And Ms. Heard started keeping records so that she could show you what you had done. Do you agree with that? I cannot make any statement as to Ms. Heard's motivations for her photography of her various... Excuse me. She made it plain, I suggest to you, says Ms. Wass, that because you had no recollection of certain rather important events, as far as she was concerned, when she was the subject of violence from you, she started keeping records in the form of photographs and would remind you of these afterwards. What do you say about that? I would say that I have never seen this photograph, so she did not use it to remind me then. But you accept it shows her with a bruise on her arm. I do accept it is a photograph of Ms. Heard with a bruise on her arm, yes. This fight over the painting escalated, and at one stage, you hit her in the face with the back of your hand. So the first slap was with the open part of your hand. You know what I mean by the back of your hand? Yes, I see. Yes. Hold your hand up now. You have fairly serious rings on your hand. You always wear those rings, do you not? Yes, most of the time. There is no reason why you should not, but it means that if you do hit someone with the back of your hand, it is likely to cause more injury than if somebody that does not have rings on. Do you agree? I would say yes, absolutely. I suggest that you hit her with the back of your hand, and that was very, very painful to Ms. Hurt. And that was quite obvious to you that you had caused her considerable pain. Judge interrupts. Do you agree with that, Mr. Depp? I did not hit Ms. Heard. And furthermore, I have never hit Ms. Heard. Ms. Wass continues. The day after the night of the painting, you were due to appear on a film set. I think the film set was at Sweetser, your house at Sweetser, because you were filming a documentary about Keith Richards. Yes, ma'am, that is true. As I think you said to us yesterday, he was an idol of yours. Yes. I think the documentary was made over a long period. It took about 4 years altogether, something like that. Yes, ma'am. It is still not. It is still not finished. No. Right. Anyway, in 2015, there was a day when you were due. I'm calling it on the film set, but it was actually at your house. The filming was supposed to take place, and everything was set up for filming. Yes. And Mr. Richards was there. Ms. Wass, I'm sorry. Did you say 2015? Interrupts the judge. My lord, absolutely right. Yes, 2013. I should have said that. Do you agree with that? Yes, I was doing a documentary on Keith, and there was a date in March 2013 when you were extremely late on set. Yes, that is true. And I suggest that was the date after the argument with Ms. Hurd about the painting, during which you hit her with the back of your hand. So we can date this. I do not believe that that was the argument of that morning. My recollection is that it is something very different. Another argument? There was an argument. Yes, another argument. Can I summarize this in this way? Sure. Ms. Heard has itemized 14 episodes in her evidence in this case when you used physical violence against her. You know that, do you not? Yes, I do. It is also clear from her statement that she says those were not the only episodes. Those were the ones that she was able to describe, but there were many more than that. That is also her evidence, is it not? Yes, it is. So if you are saying incidents got mixed up, you are saying there was another incident the night before the Keith Richards filming. Is that what you were saying? Yes, ma'am. I'm not going to ask you about another incident because I want to go straight to what happened when you finally did get to the film set. Whitney had been at Orange Avenue the night before the Keith Richards interview, the Keith Richards filming. Had she? I do not recall. You do not recall that? No. But she returned to the house the following morning. Yes. And she was presented with a complete mess to the kitchen. There were lines of cocaine on the worktop and an almost empty bottle of whiskey. I think he said you were drinking whiskey at that time. Yes, ma'am. You had been smoking in the kitchen. There were cigarette butts everywhere, and there was broken glass on the floor, and the furniture was askew. That is the picture that Whitney was presented with. Does that jog your memory at all? I do not recall the destruction that Whitney Heard is describing. I remember that morning. I remember sitting at the glass table just outside the kitchen, and I was drinking whiskey. Whiskey in the morning. Yes, it was quite a nasty moment, argument. And do you remember snorting cocaine? I do not remember snorting cocaine, no. Right. Can you go back to bundle 6? Yes. That is the divider that my lord now has, your bundle 148F. We looked at this, Mr. Depp, already at this tab. Yes. Could you turn over the photograph that we had already looked at of your credit card with cocaine? You will have to turn the file around because they are in a landscape. Yes, ma'am. I see that. Thank you. Sorry, I did not mean to patronize you. No, no, no. Otherwise, I would not have done it. You never know. Thank you, though. First of all, can we establish that the photograph is a photograph of the glass table you had already described in Miss Heard's kitchen in Orange Avenue? Yes. Judge interrupts. Now, 894F, 894.262, is that right? Yes, says Ms. Wass, and 263. There are two photographs very similar. You said you were drinking whiskey. Yes. Is that whiskey we see in the glass on the right? Yes, it looks like it. I mean, it is a highball-sized glass. Do you agree? I was wondering that because of the perspective of the photo. Look at the top of the photograph of the two. It is probably better from that perspective. That is a highball glass. I was normally used to doing shots of whiskey or sipping shots of whiskey, but that is a highball glass. So that perhaps it was whiskey on ice. Whiskey on ice. Was it diluted with anything? Do you remember? Ice water. That is it. We can see the bottle. Can you see the bottle on the top photograph just to the left of your logoed cup or whatever it is? Do you see it just next to the newspaper, in front of the newspaper? Yes, ma'am, I do. It looks like another glass to me. Another glass. That is what it looks like to me. Ms. Hurd does not drink spirits, does she? She drinks red wine, but not spirits? Mostly, as I recall. Yes, she drank red wine, mostly. Yes, I do not believe she was drinking whiskey. Look at the bottom of that other receptacle for the whiskey. It has a very thick bottom. Can you see that? It is not like a glass. It is more like a bottle. Do you agree? I know the bottle was is a bottle. It was a bottle of whiskey called. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. It is it is a bottle. I liked the bottle at first because it is called Bullet Bourbon, because it looks like something that comes from the 20s or 30s. By the way, fun fact: a Bullet Bourbon is actually brewed in Kentucky, just south of Louisville. I've been to the distillery, and it back when I used to drink, I can tell you it was quite tasty. Um, but as you all know, Johnny is from Kentucky, so it's no surprise that he likes Bullet. So does this look like a Bullet bourbon bottle to you? No, that is not. No. We'll have to work out what that was at a later stage. Can you see in the front that there is a little box, about 2 inches by 2 inches, if we compare it to the size of the credit card? Yes. Property of JD with skull and crossbones on it? Yes, I do. That, I suggest, is your cocaine box. That is where you would keep your cocaine. A special box you had? I do remember the box. Do you remember it now? Yes, I did not remember the property of JD, but yes, that is a box. It was carrying cocaine in it, I would say. I probably was then. If you look at the bottom, at the center of the picture, there are 4 lines of cocaine next to a credit card. Indeed. With a straw on top of the credit card. Yes. And that is where you might normally carry cocaine. I think it is safe to infer that that is what is being used for in this occasion. Do you agree? Or do you not agree? I do agree. I was mistaken, I suppose. I am terribly sorry. Oh, that is all right. Terribly sorry. That is why I was asking you about your memory, Mr. Depp. You see, because I suggest that that box was very precious to you at this time, for reasons that would be obvious, namely that it contained the drug that you were very dependent on at this time. I was never dependent on cocaine. It is very difficult to say that someone is dependent on cocaine. It is not in the category of opiates where there is a physical addiction and a physical painful withdrawal from the drug. Cocaine is. Can I stop you? Please stop me. Yes. Okay. You are not addicted to cocaine. Can we just come to more about your addiction when we look at your interaction with Dr. Kipper? All right. Sure. When Whitney arrived, as I've said, she was confronted with a lot of mess, but she was also confronted by whiskey and lines of cocaine on the kitchen table, which we can see in the photograph. And not only that, she was also confronted by the sight of Ms. Hurd, who had obviously been crying. She was very red and crying. Do you remember her crying when Whitney arrived? I remember her crying a lot. All right, that is the answer. Thank you. You started accusing Ms. Hurd in front of her sister, Whitney, of something to do with a friend called Marie de Villepin. Does that name ring any bells to you? Just a minute. Marie, Ms. Watts spells the last name. Do you know that name, Mr. Depp? Asks the judge. I do recall the name, Your Lordship. I do recall the name from when Ms. Hurd went to France to make a film, I believe. Do you remember an argument about Marie de Villepin? I do, but I'm not positive that that was at this time. I'm sure it was not at this time. It was another argument. Another argument. All right. You, during the course of that other argument, called Ms. de Villepin a slut. Quite possibly if I was angry and upset, but I do not agree. All right. And we have looked at words that you have used to describe women, and I think you have said you are not proud of them. Well, when they are done in a joking manner with your ex-wife or my former partner, the mother of my children, in jest, it is not representative of my feelings for women. When you called Ms. de Villepin a slut, it was not a joke, I suggest. If I called her that name, then I am fairly sure that I meant it. And when Whitney arrived, you accused Ms. Heard again of having an affair with Tasia Van Ree, and you tried to snatch Ms. Heard's phone for text. Do you remember doing that? No, ma'am. And both Whitney and Ms. Heard remained with you for about 4 hours, trying to persuade you to leave the house to go to the film set where you should have been. Yes, that is true. And people were waiting for you, were they not, at the film set? Waiting for me. It was a day where it was not an interview per se between Keith Richards and myself, which had already been filmed. It was a day when Keith Richards and Tom Waits were performing together in the studio. The live recording studio and I had made a call to my first assistant director, my director of photography, and to the focus people who were all very dear friends and very talented. I told them that I was going to be held up for a while, but to go on without me, because essentially all they needed to do was capture. It was just filming Keith and Tom. I understand. I understand in performance. So my presence was not all that important to it. Could we please go to tab 56, which I'm about to find it. I'm sorry. That is all right, says the judge. Mr. Depp, if you put that one if you put that to one side, we will come back to the text in a minute. It is bundle 7, tab 56C. At the bottom, there should be pagination, H206 something. Do you see that? That is a 56C, is it? Yes, it is a series of texts. Mr. Depp, if your bundling is the same as mine, the tab number for 56C is reversed. Then you may have to. I see. I have just found it. Thank you. Good. Thank you. 56C. And go to page H206.7. Yes. Sorry, 206.8. Yes. Do you have 206.8? I do indeed. Thank you. This is from Ms. Duder's phone, as we can see Stephen SD at the top. Do you agree? Sorry. That is from Mr. Duder's. Yes. That text? Yes, ma'am. And he says, quote, "We have started shooting, so you know." And then you say, "Go, God damn it. I'm a fly on the wall. Commence. There is nothing I can do. Whatever magic is already there. Go. You make whatever calls, unclear, need to make them. I am on my way," right? Yes. If we look back, we can see that this is about at 206.7, quote, "Keith is at the studio now. Keith is rehearsing," end quote. It looks, does it not, as if it is to do with the rehearsals of Keith Richards in the documentary. In the studio, yes. It looks like it has to do with that, or does it not? Yes, I believe Mr. Richards and Mr. Waits were going through the material. You told us that Mr. Richards was a very important person in your life. What was so important that was going on that you would not leave the house to go and get to that meeting on time, to the film set on time? At that time in our relationship, when things of that nature would come up, especially an argument that was, especially at that time. Sorry, I've lost my train. Do not worry. I think the point is that you were late. Yes, and we agreed that there was an argument. Yes, you have agreed that Whitney came. You were waiting. They were trying to get you away for 4 hours. Yes, I think that answers the question. Unless there is. Yes, to me, it was more important to try to fix things, patch things up with Ms. Heard at the time. Because your driver was called, was he not? Your driver was called, and Nathan Holmes was called to take you from Ms. Heard's property at Orange Avenue to your house at Sweetser. That would have been normal, yes. What I suggest happened was that even when Mr. Holmes turned up, you refused to leave the house. You were snorting more and more lines of cocaine. As the image comes to mind and I see the cocaine on the table and the whiskey, as I said, I was mistaken. So I was definitely partaking of the cocaine and the whiskey that morning. Yes, Nathan Holmes was called to retrieve me to take me onwards to the set. The cocaine was, I believe, there were 4 lines laid out. They are in the photograph. There are in the photograph, but I suggest you had quite a lot before then. Well, 4 lines is not always for one person, let us say. I think no. In fact, I know that Ms. Heard's sister was partaking of the cocaine as well. This was cocaine that you were taking on your own. Ms. Amber Heard did not take any cocaine on that occasion. I suggest there were occasions when she rubbed her gums in it, but this was not one of them. She would chop the cocaine up for me to make the lines. Are you suggesting that that is what she did on this occasion? Ms. Heard, in a lot of ways, is a creature of routine, and there were certain things that she needed to do for me that I was not allowed to do for myself. So I'm saying, not allowed to do for myself. That is curious. Hold on a second. Ms. Heard, in a lot of ways, is a creature of routine, and there were certain things that she needed to do for me that I was not allowed to do for myself. Interesting. It reminds me of the editor's note. It reminds me of the boot story. You guys remember the boot story from the trial in Virginia, where it became a routine, a habit for Amber to take off Johnny's boots when he would come home from work. And then one day she was busy and he took off his own boots and she flipped out and caused an entire scene. Like, how dare you? This is my job to take your, like, rather than just being like, oh, you took your boots off, honey. Like, okay, lay down on the couch. Let's watch a movie. And this kind of like reminds me of that. He was not allowed to take his own boots off. Crazy. Okay, let's keep going. It's just reading that. Ms. Heard is a creature of routine. There were certain things that she did for me that I was not allowed to do for myself. I mean, that is just bonkers. Talk about control. I mean, she was like controlling him vicariously, like a puppet pulling strings. Hmm. She wanted him to be dependent on her. Yeah, yeah, that's a great point, Becca. Okay, let's keep going. Um, so I'm saying that she was trying to sort of, when I would arrive home, she would. Oh, there it is. Literally, I should have just kept reading. So I'm saying that she was trying to sort of, when I would arrive home, she would take my boots off, and that was a regular routine. There it is, literally. Wow. So it would not be anything out of the ordinary for her to chop those lines out. And again, as I see it in my memory, I recall Nathan was called, Whitney was there, and she participated in the cocaine. So now you claim to remember this. Well, you have opened my eyes. Ah, yes, I understand. Memory does that. Thank you for that. I am suggesting that you are not telling the truth about that, Mr. Depp, that never on any occasion did Miss Heard ever chop up lines of cocaine for you. She was extremely, Judge interrupts, when you talk about Miss Heard, you're talking about Amber, are you? Yes, I called Whitney Henriquez, as she is now Whitney, and Miss Heard, Miss Heard. Judge says, okay, I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Depp understood the question. So the suggestion is, Mr. Depp, that you are not telling the truth, and Ms. Amber Heard never took cocaine, and that was the question, was it not, Ms. Wass? Yes. She never chopped up lines, interrupts Mr. Sherborne. Never chopped lines. And Judge Nichols, and never chop lines of cocaine preparing them for you. Johnny Depp answers, I am afraid that you are incorrect. Ms. Wass, in fact, Ms. Heard was extremely disapproving of cocaine above all things when it came to your repertoire of controlled drugs. She poured me the whiskey, and the cocaine was visible in front of her. I would, and I have experienced many times with Ms. Heard that she would, in fact, chop up the cocaine for me so that I could do the line, and then she would press her finger into it and ingest it orally. So I am not suggesting that she did that in this case, but I am suggesting that it was done as a normal duty, and she felt obligated to do it early on. I suggest there is no truth in that whatsoever. I suggest that you are sadly mistaken. I understand, but we can go on, and we both have made. We are not going to go on and on. Our respectful positions clear. You would not leave the house, Miss Heard's house, unless Miss Heard and her sister came with you on the film set, would you? No, that is not true. One of the conditions was that you would go in order to do the filming of the documentary, but only if she went with you. And she brought her sister in the car, and she brought her dog, Pistol. I never said that I am not going there without them, without Whitney or Ms. Heard or Ms. Henriquez or Mrs. Henriquez. The position is, Mr. Depp, that you had consumed so much alcohol and so much cocaine by the time you were due to go to the film set that you were being utterly irrational, and it may well be that you simply do not remember what happened, but your behavior that following morning when Whitney arrived was very, very bad indeed. My behavior was bad in what way? I'm sorry to ask the question. I'm about to tell you. Thank you. When you agreed to go, it was on a condition that Miss Heard went with you. She took her sister and she took her little teacup Yorkshire Terrier Pistol with her in the car, as well as Whitney and Miss Heard, and Pistol was your driver. Was that Starling Jenkins? He's one of the drivers. Yes. Do you remember which driver it was? I do not. No. And Nathan Holmes was there? Yes. Was Nathan Holmes somebody who had supplied drugs to you? On occasion, Nathan would be able to safely get a hold of, get his hands on them, I suppose. Right. When you were in the car, you were smoking and you opened the window and you were angry and you were aggressive. No, ma'am. Rather like you were in that clip we saw yesterday of the monster side of your character. No, ma'am. I was not in that mode at all. And at one stage, you took hold of Ms. Heard's dog. It is a very tiny little thing, is it not? Very tiny. You can pick it up with one hand. One of your hands could pick it up quite easily. Of course, it weighs about 3 pounds. Right. You took hold of Pistol and held her out of the window and started making howling noises. I can say that is a very enduring image, but it is absolute, utter falsity. It is fraudulent. It is not true. You thought this was a huge joke. No, ma'am. I do not think hanging an animal, a small, defenseless dog that weighs 3 pounds out of a window at speed, it is not my idea of fun, although my sense of humor is slightly skewed. I was going to say, your sense of humor, which you explained yesterday, is perhaps rather niche. Would you agree? It is niche, sure. I suppose that is a good way to put it. Were you laughing at a suggestion that you made that you could put the dog in the microwave? That suggestion of putting the dog in the microwave was not something that put it this way. It was. That sort of humor was a running joke between Ms. Heard, myself, Mrs. Henriquez, her family, and friends, because they are so ludicrously tiny. So I would not say that I was the inventor of that particular joke, and also I was not the only one who was. I was not the only one who brought anything like that up. It was normal. Whilst you were behaving in this extremely bad way, as I set out. Yes. Nathan Holmes did nothing, and Starling Jenkins did nothing. Well, there was nothing for them to do because there was nothing like that happening. Do you remember Ellen Barkin's deposition yesterday in which she described throwing the bottle across the room towards her? I do remember that testimony, yes. And she said the assistant did nothing. I read it out to you yesterday. Yes, okay. The assistant did nothing. You surround yourself with people who never try to control you or tell you what to do. They just tolerate your bad behavior, and their function is to clear up for you. What do you say about that? I disagree and deny that because, in my opinion, that would be a very sad way to live one's life. A very sad way to live one's life. As far as hanging a dog out the window, there is something. You have already denied that, Mr. Depp. I am sorry. Uh, Ms. Wass was asking you about the relations you had with employees or other people who work with you. Yes. What was being suggested was that you surround yourself with the people who never tell you what to do. Do you agree with that? Or I'm sorry. Do you agree or disagree with that? I vehemently disagree with it. Thank you, answers the judge. Ms. Wass continues. You lied to people about your alcohol intake or falling off the wagon, if I can call it more generally. Did you not? You concealed that from people. No, I have not concealed it in this case at all. You concealed it at the time it was happening. If one is doing cocaine, I do not think it is something that one should spill out on a restaurant table or amongst other people. It is something that one wants to keep in private. Yes. You had your sobriety friends. I think you called them. You have said Mr. Dunnett was one of them. Elton John was another one. Is that correct? That is correct. We saw the email to Elton John that you had 100 days clean and there was contact between you and Mr. Dunnett. Was there not, about your sobriety and how it is going? There had been. I am not sure if it continued here. Go to page 7 at the front of tab 6. Judge interrupts. I'm sorry, the text schedule. Are we now in file 6? File 6. That was page 7? Page 7 at the bottom. Yes. Can you see in the middle of that page, there is slightly longer text than the others. It is dated the 13th of April, 2013. It might be somewhere very far. It says depositions and declarations. No, we are looking at tab 6, volume 6, tab 119. Oh, tab 119. Sorry, that is all right. Page 7. Is that what you're looking for? Thank you. Yes. Can you see in the middle of that page? Just get your bearings. Are you on page 6F 6997.7? Yes, your lordship. Thank you. Ms. Wass continues. There is a text from Mr. Dunnett to you, dated April 13th, 2013. Yes. So within a week or two of these two incidents where we saw the cocaine lined up, and in the second photograph, the quite considerable amount of whiskey on the kitchen table. Agreed? On the table, yes, there was whiskey and cocaine. This text took place a couple of weeks after the whiskey on the table photographs we have looked at. Okay. Mr. Dunnett says, Morning, Johnny. Back home in the smoke, funeral went well, and unusual, not a fight in sight. Hope you're feeling better on day 487. That's a lot of days sober, or even 15 months. End quote. I mean, this chap, Charlie Dunnett, thought you had been sticking to the plan of sobriety. Did he not? It appears so, yes. You did nothing to set the record straight and confess to what you had been doing. We do not see any of my responses to Mr. Dunnett here. Do you suggest that you said to him, quote, Charlie, I've come clean. I have been snorting humongous amounts of cocaine in the last month and drinking whiskey, end quote. Are you suggesting you sent a text like that? I am suggesting that I am pretty sure, especially having been in touch with Elton and Charlie, that I would have told Elton that I failed and that I had gone back. And I would have told Mr. Dunnett at some point. You can help us with the evidence of that if you can find it. Is that what you were saying? I can certainly try and find that, but I believe it was more than likely in person with Elton, I mean. No documentary proof then. Excuse me? No documentary proof? I will check. I will try and find it. All right, that would be very helpful. Absolutely. Can you go to the next text down, which is actually a month later, which would be in May? You sent a couple of texts to Mr. Duders, your personal assistant. Yes, ma'am. Might need some hydrogen peroxide and some butterfly bandages. Cut my hand last night. Yes. May require stitches. Yes. I will poop on your chest. Yes. Which I'm taking as a joke, the last line of those texts. Is that correct? It is a joke. You had a fairly lavatorial sense of humor. Is that fair? Sophomoric and childish. I want to establish this was a joke and you have made that plain. I had no plans of doing that. No. What was not a joke, I presume, was the fact that you wanted some butterfly bandages for your injured hand. That does not seem like a joke. That does not sound very funny. So it would appear, would it not, that when this text was sent, it appears to be in the morning because you said you had cut your hand last night and it was quite a serious cut. Do you agree if it required stitches or may require stitches? Yes, I'm looking at that and I see, yes, it seems to have happened. I'm just trying to remember what the cut was. This, if you cannot remember, do you think it was one of these occasions when you were on drink or drugs and you only realized the extent of your injury the following morning because you do not appear to have realized the seriousness of the injury the previous night? Do you, or if you only asked for the bandages the following morning? Well, if I had cut my hand, I am sure I wrapped it in something and then would deal with it the next day. Do you remember this incident at all? I do not remember it, no. All right, I will move on. You have made it plain that Ms. Heard was not supporting your sobriety, and I have suggested that is not true. You had a friend called Paul Bettany. Yes, ma'am. And Paul Bettany and you both shared an enjoyment of controlled drugs and or alcohol. Do you agree? At times, yes, we did. Did you share with Paul Bettany the fact that Ms. Heard was trying to wean you off drug taking? Yes. Just a minute. The question was, did you share with Mr. Bettany? Interrupts the judge. Ms. Wass responds, the fact that Ms. Heard, Amber Heard, was trying to wean Mr. Depp off drink and drugs. Mr. Depp agreed. Mr. Depp, you did say that, that sort of thing. I'm not asking for verbatim. She was quite adamant that I not drink anymore, and she was quite adamant that I should stop any use of cocaine or recreational drugs. Yes. Thank you for that. But how does that last statement that she was adamant you should not drink alcohol or take drugs, recreational drugs, how does that square with your suggestion that she did not support your sobriety, which is in your statement? Well, let me remind you what you said. Quote, I was in recovery from drug addiction during significant parts of my marriage to Amber. Instead of supporting my sobriety, she often encouraged me to drink alcohol and take drugs, even though she knew my relationship with alcohol and drugs was a difficult one for me. She never supported me in my attempt to be strong and to avoid alcohol. When I read that to you earlier, you said you stuck by that. She never supported you. Now you're saying to Mr. Bettany that she was telling you to stop the drink and the drugs. I would say, yes, the full support of someone who is believed to be an alcoholic or someone who is believed to be addicted to drugs, I would say would then themselves stop drinking in front of that person and stop doing drugs around that person. I would say that is full support. That is support of someone that you love and that you care about. If you ask them to make the sacrifice, you should be willing to make the sacrifice yourself, I believe. All right. Just for the avoidance of doubt, Ms. Heard would drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine quite regularly in the evening, would she not? Even when you were trying to be sober. I beg your pardon, but it was 2 or 3 bottles. Oh, that is complete nonsense, Mr. Depp. If that is how you feel about it, I respect. Mr. Depp, I have said this to you before, but it is Ms. Wass's job to put on her client's case. Interrupts the judge. Yes, I am not disagreeing with it. This is like bombardment. Are you fucking kidding me? They're just attacking him. This is like a collective effort. He's just correcting her. It was not 2 or 3 glasses. It was 2 or 3 bottles. Shut up, Mr. Depp. She's the one asking the questions, okay? Wow. I'm sorry, but this is just so frustrating to read. Judge Nickel. Her client's case is that she took only 2 or 3 glasses, but I'm interested in your evidence. And if your evidence is that she had 2 or 3 bottles, not just glasses, then that is what I will take note of. That is exactly what I said, Your Honor. And she said that she did not believe me or it is nonsense. I did not say I do not believe you or it is nonsense or something. What Ms. Wass believes or does not believe is completely besides the point. What I'm interested in, says the judge, is your evidence, and I understood what you had to say. Yes, thank you. Sorry, my lord. Ms. Wass continues. Can you go to page 8, my lord, if I can finish this passage? Yes, of course. It would be a good time for a break. Yes. Page 8, Mr. Depp. We are still in the text schedule. I don't know if they took a break or not, but I imagine they did. But this is not the morning break. This is like a morning break. This is not the lunch break. It looks like, because we're still too early in the reading. Ms. Wass continues. Yes, this is the text that you sent on the 4th of June 2013 from Mr. Bettany to you, and I'll read it to you. I've just thought of a way for us to make a lot of money. I know you already have a lot of money, but I mean a lot of money and with very little effort. First of all, we buy Amber a pet beaver, and then we take pictures of you shaving said beaver. All that is left to do is create a website with a domain name, Johnny Depp Shaves Amber Heard's Beaver. And then we sell advertising space like fucking crazy. Clearly, there are many spin-offs. You could poke punch. Do you remember that email? I'm sorry, that text? No, I do not remember this one in particular. Do you think that is a respectful way of somebody hear your friend Paul Bettany talking about your girlfriend? It is not the most respectful way to speak about Ms. Heard. They had their differences, and they did not like each other very much. I'm sorry, it is not the most respectful way to speak about Ms. Heard. They had their differences and they did not like each other very much. Okay, let us go down. You sent a text to Mr. Bettany on June 11th. Let's burn Amber. Do you remember sending that? I do not remember sending that, but I remember the exchange. I have read it, yes. Okay, let us carry on with the exchange then. Yes, please. On the 11th of June, Mr. Bettany then says, having thought it through, I don't think we should burn Amber. She's delightful company and easy on the eye. Plus, I'm not sure she's a witch. We could, of course, try the English course of action in these predicaments. We do a drowning test. Thoughts? NB, I have a pool. You then say, let's drown her before we burn her. I will then fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she's dead. And Mr. Bettany says, my thoughts entirely. Let's be certain before we pronounce her a witch. Now, this reference to her being a witch was, I suggest, a reference to the fact that she was trying to stop you drinking and taking drugs, and that you resented her for doing that, and were joking with Ms. Bettany about her being the moral police, that sort of thing. Again, I will just answer the question. Sorry. What is the question exactly? I suggest these references to Amber being a witch, which came from Mr. Bettany. Yes. And you certainly joined in. Yes. Were references to the fact that she was trying to spoil your fun, as you saw it, by being able to take drugs and drink as much as you chose to. Do you agree with that or disagree? I had spoken to Mr. Bettany quite a lot as we were working together, and he was a very close friend. So he knew of our arguments and fighting, and he knew details. I was resentful of the fact that Ms. Heard was very aggressive and quite insulting about my use of alcohol. Or if cocaine came into the picture, she did not like Mr. Bettany. And I am afraid she did not really like me all that much either. And she was constantly harping on things that did not even exist. She did not like you when you were high on drugs and drunk on alcohol, did she? She did not like that. She did not like me using alcohol or drugs because she had some delusional idea that they turned me into, as you've spoken about, this said monster. All right. I think that was very helpful. Thank you for that. You are welcome. And just before the 11th of June, can we go to File 8, Tab 64? There are many divisions in 64. There are 64 and 64A, says the judge. Now, it is the one behind 64, which is the email from Amber H. Yes. Have you got that page? Just wait until Mr. Depp gets to that page. Yes, I have it. Page 12. Oh, I think it is actually I too, says the judge. It may be difficult to tell. Thank you, Ms. Was. I think we're looking at the same document. Just to remind ourselves, your text about burning Amber and fucking her burnt corpse were on June 11th when you were exchanging these sentiments with Mr. Bettany. On the same day, to the time very near, it would appear, Ms. Heard wrote this email to herself, but it is dated, you see, the 11th of June. Yes, I see. Thank you. Quote, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Half of you I love madly. It is a letter to you, but not sent to you. You understand that? Thank you. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Half of you I love madly. The other half scares me. I can't take him. I wish I could, but I can't. The problem is, I never really know or understand which one I am dealing with until it's too late. The drinking assures me that I'm dealing with the monster, the abused, scared, insecure, violent little boy. I just can't tell where the line starts. Also, drugs seem to guarantee I will be forced to deal with the monster as well once again. It's knowing that how much when which makes all the difference. Sometimes the hangover the morning after is just as bad as the full on disco bloodbath I've come to expect. You live in a world full of enablers. You cut out and resent. Whether you realize it or not, everybody who isn't an enabler. I can make a clear distinction as to who falls into which category with complete ease. Just how often you see them and what role they play in your day to day life distinguishes where they fall on the enabling scale. I watched yesterday as everyone around you picked you up off the floor, held you up, and got on with your life, prevented you from really falling. With so much help, of course, you can't know how much this hurts you and your life because you pay people around you to prevent your feet from having to hit rock bottom, as they say. Yesterday, I saw you pass out amongst vomiting 3 times. All 3 times, Jerry. That is a reference to Jerry Judge, your security. Yes, ma'am. Jerry had carried you from the floor on the plane. Nathan mentioned how many times he has had to break into locked doors to wake you up from out on the toilet, from after passing out on the toilet. You would have embarrassed yourself countless times if someone would be honest enough to tell you, to show you. If someone filmed you while you were in this state, you would be mortified. If it is embarrassing just to watch it happen, you can't know because people, friends, keep smiling in your face and then turning their heads and rolling their eyes at how ridiculous they feel at, and look, picking up a grown man from his own piss and vomit, knowing he'll never be able to realize how bad he is. Hungover, post pills is not much better. You're mean and insensitive. I have no reason I have to stay with you, and I won't. You don't pay. I don't have to lie to you for my job, livelihood, or kids. I will never want to be locked into you. My freedom is now, I realize, the only thing I have to protect me. I will never ever trust you to trap me. I myself watched you pass out cold on the floor after drinking yourself sick. One of these times you cut yourself so badly you needed stitches. End quote. Do you accept, Mr. Depp, that this ties in with your text where you were asking about stitches? Mr. Sherborne interrupts. My lord, with respect, Ms. Watts is reading out an email that was never sent, and she is using it, no doubt, as a vehicle to try to put things to Mr. Depp. We all know what Ms. Watts is trying to do, and with respect, she should ask a question of this actual document as opposed to trying to put references to somehow get this into evidence. Ms. Watts responds, all right, let me go further down the document then, Mr. Depp. Then I will ask you a question. Can you see 3 lines from the bottom of the page where it's there's a sentence that says, quote, and you get the convenient benefit of never having to remember it. That's nice for you. So you get away with so many lies that you tell yourself. You actually trick yourself into thinking the craziest lies when you are fucked up because you are so accustomed to people not calling you out on your bullshit. They work for you. Hello? You actually believe your shit. Need a reference about how you actually thought I hit you first or that I was hiding drugs. The list goes on. Admit some of your own shit first. End quote. Mr. Sherborne responds, my lord, all Ms. Wass is doing is literally reading the entire document. She said she was going to ask a question. We are still waiting on that question. Judge, Ms. Wass, I think you need to ask a question. I will ask a question now, and then I will ask something else to Mr. Depp. Your answer to Ms. Heard's allegations that you are a serial domestic abuser is that this is a hoax and she is playing a hoax to somehow get attention or to associate herself with the Me Too movement. That is your answer to these allegations she makes, is it not? You never hit her. She hit you, and she's developing this hoax. A hoax is probably the best word I can use because the allegations, all of the allegations, are patently untrue. You see, in this email, which, as I said, is dated, she accuses you of having hurt her physically and emotionally. Is this the email she never sent? This is the email she never sent. We know she wrote this, you see. I wish she had sent it. Mr. Depp, wait now for the next question, please. Yes, sir. Can you think of any reason why Ms. Heard would have written a letter like this, which she did not send to you, describing somebody who was regularly out of control to the extent that they would pass out, vomited, and soiled themselves, somebody who would be protected by their staff, somebody who had no recollection of what they had done once they had sobered up? How does that document, can you think of any reason why that would have been sent in 2013 before you had even asked Ms. Heard to marry you? From hearing you read this text to me that was not sent to me, excuse me, and from some of the information that I have garnered from this, my experience yesterday and having studied this case, I will suggest, ma'am, that it appears to me that Ms. Heard was building a dossier very early on that appears to be an insurance policy for later. So, can I just understand this? Her hoax, as you have described it, yes, I described it as a hoax, and I agree. I think it is one of your documents, but I will find out after the break. Thank you very much. The hoax was not just a question of her making a false allegation in a domestic violence restraining order. This is something she had plotted for 3 years. Three. No, yeah, you're correct. 3 years. And that is your explanation for the email I've just read to you. By the evidence that I have seen, okay, and experienced. Thank you very much. Thank you. My lord, that would be a convenient time. Yes, Mr. Deb, we're going to take a break now to enable you to stretch your legs. Thank you, sir. We will resume in 10 minutes' time. You must not talk to anybody about your evidence. The qualification I added last night has now come to an end. It is now on prohibition on talking to anybody about your evidence. Do you understand that? I absolutely understand. Thank you, your lordship. We will take 10 minutes. That I have a 10-minute break. And they come back. Yes, says the judge. Ms. Wass. Ms. Wass continues her cross-examination. Mr. Depp, before we broke off, do you remember you said hoax was my word, and I said I would look up where I had seen it in your documents. I have found a reference, if it helps. I can either show it to you in the document if you are happy for me to read it from your statement, and Mr. Sherborne will interrupt if I have misquoted anything that you have said. At paragraph 19 of your second witness statement, you say this, quote, the sad irony of her abuse hoaxes, you are referring to Ms. Heard, quote, is that they mirror what she actually subjected to me during the course of our relationship. It is, end quote. It is your description, not mine, that Ms. Heard had played an elaborate hoax on you. Pardon me? Do you accept that? Yes, I do. I'm sorry. You have made it plain from what you said before we broke for our 10-minute break, slightly extended, that she might have been planning. Now you have looked at all the material. You know she was planning that hoax for at least 3 years. Yes. Okay, I'm going to move on to another subject. Your birthday is on June 9th, and in 2013, a group of you went to a place called Hicksville Trailer Park in California. The Hicksville story. Yes. You remember that occasion? I do remember the occasion. I do not recall it was my birthday. It may well not have been your birthday, and it may be that the date is difficult to ascertain. We are happy for any information about this, but you agree that around the time of your birthday, which is on June 9th, so before or after, late May or in June itself, a group of you went to the Hicksville Trailer Park? Yes, ma'am. The people who went were yourself, Ms. Heard, Ms. Heard's sister, Whitney, her friend, Christy Sexton. Do you remember her? Yes. And her friend, Raquel Pennington, who also known as Rocky. Introduction. Rocky's in the picture now. Yes. You were all staying in the trailer park. Yes. A group of you had taken over a number of these trailers. Yes, I believe they were all reserved. They were all reserved for your party, and you and Amber had the main trailer, the master suite, as it were, the main trailer. Yes, sure. And you, at that time, got on well with Christy Sexton. Yes. You would chat to her quite freely, joke with her. Yes. Do you remember an occasion when you were in your apartment and Christy Sexton was there and there were doctors there because you needed to take drugs, excuse me, a drugs test for insurance purposes? Do you remember an occasion like that? Yes. Taking drug tests for films. When you are what they call an essential element of the film for insurance purposes, they test you for everything. Everything. All right. And you told Christy Sexton not to worry because those tests were easy to fake. Those tests are not easy to fake. I do not recall saying that. Have you ever faked a drugs test? Just a minute, please, interrupts the judge. I would draw that last question. I will move on to Hicksville. You say that never happened? What never happened? I'm sorry. The interchange about you saying how easy it was to fake a drugs test. I have never faked a drugs test. No. I understand that is part of your answer. Have you any recollection, interrupts the judge, of saying to Christy Sexton that you had faked a drugs test? No, your lordship. Thank you. Now, do you agree that the visit to Hicksville was around the time, and by around I mean within a month or so, of the texting that we saw with Paul Bettany when you were going to burn Amber? I could not be sure of that. Right, because that we know was about 4th or 11th of June, and within few weeks on either side. You cannot be sure of the date at all. I do not want to press you if you cannot. I do not recall the date we were at Hicksville. I understand. Do you accept that was a period when you were both drinking and taking controlled drugs, in particular cocaine or MDMA and or mushrooms? On the trip to Hicksville, there was, of course, there was alcohol. In general, everybody had their drug of choice. So there were some people doing MDMA, mushrooms. I was drinking myself and I was smoking marijuana. I ingested probably three, little as you call them, stems of the mushrooms, but to no effect. I think you had a quantity of white powder with you. I was not using cocaine at Hicksville. What about MDMA? I did not do any MDMA in Hicksville because it would have been a waste of time. It does not do much to me. Well, you brought drugs to the party, to the Hicksville party, did you not? I brought marijuana, and well, I brought marijuana. Again, we are going to have to agree to disagree. I suggest you brought a quantity of white powder. Whether that was cocaine or not, that was something that you had. Do you remember in the evening, the group of you were sitting around, and I think you were playing the guitar at some stage around the fire? Yes. Yes. And the drugs were taken on that occasion. They were recreational. Do you agree with what I'm saying? It was a sociable event? Yes. It is not uncommon in the circles that you move in that people take recreational drugs, particularly in a party setting. What did I just do? Oh, I'm sorry, I lost my place for a second. It is not uncommon, no. And that was the level of drug taking, and that was the level of drug taking there apart from your drug taking, Mr. Depp, because you took considerably more drugs than anyone else that night. The judge interrupts. Well, Ms. Wass, if that is a question, and Mr. Depp needs an opportunity to answer it. Yes, you took considerably more drugs than anyone else that night, did you not? No, ma'am. You started to get angry. The monster joined the party, and you took exception to the woman who was in your group called Kelly Sue. Do you remember Kelly Sue? I do not know her name. I did not know her name at the time, but now, of course, you know who I'm talking about. Indeed, I do. Kelly Sue was sitting very close to Ms. Hurd and was being rather affectionate. Rather affectionate. You take exception to this? Yes, I did. She was putting her hands on Amber, and I thought it was an uncomfortable position to put her in. To put Amber in? To put Ms. Hurd in? To put Ms. Hurd in, yes. Ms. Hurd was not saying, I mean, Ms. Hurd is quite a feisty woman, as you have said more than once in your descriptions of her. She is more than capable of saying to somebody, get off of me, if they touch her and she does not want them to. Why did you have to take exception to Kelly Sue? I suppose Ms. Heard did not have to. So you were being the Southern gentleman again, were you, that night? If you like. Because you actually became extremely angry with Kelly Sue and became quite unpleasant, shouting at her and eventually saying to her, "Do you know how much pressure it would take to break your wrist?" That never happened. How did you deal with this situation? What did you say to Miss Kelly Sue? As I recall the incident, it was not around the campfire where I was playing the guitar. It was at nightfall when we were looking around the place, and there was a pool table, and there was a pool, and you could climb the ladder to get to it. As the girls were congregating, this Kelly Sue began to touch Miss Heard in ways that were beyond what one would accept as normal affection. They were quite sexual, and they were quite aggressive, and she was clearly very high. And your impression was that Ms. Heard did nothing to prevent this show of an affection from Kelly Sue. Is that right? I remember that she just sort of was looking at her, smiling. I believe Ms. Kelly Sue was a friend of Raquel Pennington's. It perhaps does not matter who she was a friend of. I think it does, just in terms of maybe she did not want to be rude to Raquel's friend. I see. So it was not a question of Ms. Heard going along with the show of affection. It was a question of her not feeling able to rebuff it. I thought it was an uncomfortable situation for her. And how did you deal with that uncomfortable situation? I removed Miss Kelly's hand from Ms. Heard's body, and I told her not to do that. That, first of all, that is my girl. Second of all, that is rude and invasive. She was quite glassy-eyed, and she seemed very unsure of her surroundings. She seemed very unstable on her feet, and I remember saying to her, if you're going to take this drug, MDMA, you should know if you're able to handle it or not. Right? Do not take it if you cannot handle it. You see, I'm going to suggest that you were quite angry by Kelly Sue. It was not a polite removal of the hand. You were quite forceful, and you made the threat that I have already suggested to you, which you have denied. But not only that, you were actually quite angry with Ms. Heard about this. No, ma'am. And you had a big argument with Ms. Heard when you got back to your trailer. We did have a big argument when we arrived back at the trailer, yes. The argument was really fueled by two things. One was the fact that you had consumed a lot of alcohol and drugs that night, and you had become very aggressive. As we have seen in that video, you were prone to become. And secondly, that you were very jealous, and again, that you had accepted that you have on occasion been jealous. That is why the argument started. The argument started about Kelly Sue. In a way, it did. Yes, you are correct. The argument did start because of the incident with this Miss Kelly Sue, because when we arrived back at our trailer, Ms. Heard began to yell and scream at me. Oh, I'm sorry. In a way, it did. Yes, you are correct. The argument did start because of the incident with this Ms. Kelly Sue, because when we arrived back at our trailer, Ms. Heard began to yell and scream at me, and I had ruined everyone's weekend. And that, once again, I was the bummer, and, I had ruined everyone's good time. So I was demeaned for being concerned. You ruined the good time because of the Kelly Sue exchange. Yes, I think when people are under the influence of MDMA and mushrooms and alcohol at that level, you can get quite hyped up, because in the MDMA, there's a lot of speed in the MDMA. So she was on a very good run, let us say, Ms. Heard. She was quite pumped up. I suggest that Ms. Heard took mushrooms that night, not MDMA, but mushrooms. It was quite a different effect, is it not? Well, mushrooms is a different effect. Mushrooms are hallucinatory. Hallucinogenic? It is a hallucinatory drug, psilocybin. So if she is on hallucinatory drug, and I'm not on a hallucinatory drugs to the degree that she is, then her recollection could be a little bit more skewed. Well, you are on MDMA mixed, I was not. With speed, I was not. And I suggest that you were very hyped up. Very, very hyped up indeed. I was not on MDMA. I did not have MDMA. I believe that was left up to Ms. Heard's friends to bring that along. Again, if they had MDMA, which they did, I would say there was not enough to go around. Let us say, so I did not do it because I found it a waste, as it does not affect me in the same way that it does others, as mushrooms do not affect me in the same way as it does others. I'm not saying I'm unique, the only person in the world, but that trailer that you stayed with Ms. Heard got smashed up, did it not? A bathroom sconce got smashed up. I was very upset at being yet again treated as she, pardon the expression, the turd and the punch bowl. And that was quite unpleasant. I did not feel that I deserved to be screamed at, demeaned, and treated like garbage for having done something that I felt was right and correct. So during the height of the argument, I punched the glass Art Deco light fixture in the bathroom above the bathroom mirror and smashed it. The trailer was very, very badly damaged the next day. There was a wall lamp, a sconce, as you called it, hanging off the wall. But there was a mess everywhere, absolutely everywhere. You had trashed the trailer. I'm going to have to say no, I did not. You just limited your anger to tearing off the wall lamp. Is that right? No, I did not tear off the wall lamp, Ms. Watts. I punched the lighting fixture, the glass around the bulb. All right. Do you remember Ms. Kirsty Sexton coming into the trailer the next morning? I do not remember Kirsty Sexton coming into the trailer the next morning. I remember going to the manager of Hicksville. Yes, with your security? I'm sorry. With your security team? No. Were your security team there? Yes, I had security there, but they. Sorry, carry on. You were about to tell us about the manager? Yes. All by myself. I did not feel threatened, so I did not need a security team to go talk to the manager. I found the manager and I said, I'm sorry, but I broke the lighting fixture in the trailer and I will pay for any damage there is. I'm terribly sorry. The manager came over to the trailer. He came in. He had a look at the fixture and he said, no problem. He left for about 10 minutes. He came back with another fixture and screwed it on above the light bulb. You see, that is not what happened at all. In fact, your security team negotiated or had to negotiate with the owners about sorting out the much more extensive damage that you had done. And they were offering money to them. The owners became very upset because, do you remember a wedding party was due to arrive within a couple of hours? I do have a vague memory, yes, that we had to get out of there, yes. The owners were saying, you cannot just pay for it. We have people coming in 2 hours. They never expressed that to me. As I said, I spoke with the manager. I brought him to the trailer. I showed him the damage. And then he went to his office and returned with a replacement bulb. You have told us that, and I understand your account on that. Okay, I will not say it again then. There is no need to say it again unless there is anything new that you need to add. That trailer was trashed by you because of the physical fight that you had with Ms. Heard in the trailer on the night before. That night that you had made the objections about Kelly's suit. That is what happened. That is what I suggest happened. The trailer was not trashed. Your Lordship, there are matters... Sorry, that was a dog in the hallway. Your Lordship, there are matters dealt with in the confidential part of the case. Judge says, I have said that it would be convenient if the private part of the hearing could be dealt with as conveniently as possible. In other words, in one session. Yes, absolutely, says Ms. Watts. If that means you taking out of order, it does, because then I understand that. But I think the priority should be to minimize the movement between public and open. I agree, public and private. I can deal with it all together towards the end of the cross-examination. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Depp, you were very angry with Ms. Heard, and amongst other things, you physically hit her and had pushed her around in that trailer that the two of you had rented. And during the course of that struggle, things got broken, and that is how the trailer was trashed. What do you say about that? I say that is not the case, ma'am. Can I move on to another subject? I just want to ask you, do you accept that you have referred to Ms. Heard and her disapproval of your drink and drug habit, and you have referred to her as a, quote, lesbian camp counselor, end quote? I have never uttered the words. Can we go to file 7, tab 2B? You say 2B, says the judge? Yes, and I can see immediately that I've got the wrong reference. I'm sorry. Would my lord give me a minute, please? Sure. Have you got it, Mr. Depp? Is it page H23.2? That is exactly right. Now we have got it. The name of the person sending the text here is recorded as Steve. That is you. Just a minute. H23.2? Yes. Thank you. Yes, Steve. That was me. Steve was me. You and Ms. Heard had nicknames for each other, Steve and Slim. Yes. From the Howard Hawks film To Have and Have Not. Yes. With Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Yes. Presumably, you saw a similarity in your relationship, the age difference between you, possibly because of that film. Humphrey Bogart was considerably older than Lauren Bacall. Yes, indeed. She was 19 and he was 45, I believe. Yes, as indeed there was a very large age difference between you and Miss Heard. Yes, enormous. In any event, when we see Steve, we know it is you. Yes, I was Steve, and she was Slim. Yes, right. Go over to the next page, please. Then at the bottom of H23.3, this is, I suggest, a text exchange with her. Your display of guilt and matronliness as a lesbian camp counselor was plenty, but your future is on display. That is you sending a message to Slim, to Ms. Heard? Yes, it is. And you describe or you use the words, quote, lesbian camp counselor, end quote. Yes, I use the words lesbian camp counselor in the text. I just thought you had denied ever using it. That is all? No, no, I do not deny ever referring to her or calling her a lesbian camp counselor. However, I see here you are correct. I used that in the text, but the words were never uttered. Right. It does not actually make any difference whether they were uttered or sent in a text. Obviously, there are many things in a text. I am agreeing with you that I have made a mistake. I'm sure you'll agree that is a highly offensive reference to her. Yes, it is. And attacking people's sexuality, disparaging descriptions of people's sexuality. I would say that was an ugly thing to do, an ugly thing to write. Could you please go to the next bundle, please? That is the beginning of page 6, volume 6, the beginning of volume 6, tab 119. Tab 6, volume 6, tab 119. Yes. Page 9. Yes. At the bottom of that page, there is a text from you to, is it your sister, Christy? Yes, it is. Quote, Amber and I, not so good anymore, end quote. You are saying, quote, if Amber is good with it, it's fine, end quote. You are just dealing with some practical problem. Then you say, quote, Amber and I, not so good anymore. Is that right? Yes. This was at the time when you and Amber, Ms. Heard, were going through a number of difficulties, mainly because of your drug ingestion and alcohol consumption. Do you agree? No. At page 10, your sister replies to you, quote, she wants to talk to me. She does not know what to do. Loves you, but does not always know what to do. She's worried about it all. Yes? Yes, I see that. And then you say, it was not pleasant today. I was not aware that she had another goddamn photo shoot tomorrow. That is really why she fucking left. I don't need actress bullshit in her fucking ambition, end quote. Do you remember yesterday that you said that phrase, quote, actress bullshit and fucking ambition, end quote, referred to you trying to support her and get more serious roles that did not objectify her? Do you remember that evidence you gave yesterday? Yes, I do. Do you stand by that interpretation of what that phrase means? Yes, I do stand by that by referring to, if I may say, actress bullshit and ambition, though Ms. Heard was concerned with, as I said yesterday, being objectified by directors, producers, the world at large, having to do nude scenes in films. We had talked quite a lot about Mr. Depp. You explained this yesterday. You stand by what you said yesterday. I just wanted to establish whether you did stand by what you said yesterday. Now we have seen the context of the text. You say you did. I stand by it. Would you like to move on, if I may? I would like to move on, if I may, please. At page 10 in the text, there is a text to Mr. Bettany below that text that we have just looked at. If you go halfway down that text, you say to him, quote, you may have to drink for me. I, of course, pounded and displayed ugly colors to Amber on a recent journey. I'm an insane person and not so fair-headed after too much of the drink. Weed, pills, fine. Booze, my capacity is too large and I won't stop. Ugly and sad. Oh, how I love it. So did you send that text to Mr. Bettany? Yes, it appears so, yes. Could you go remaining file in file 6 to tab 148, please? Yes. So the text to Mr. Bettany is on the 11th of July, 2013. If you go behind divider 148, Yes. Could you look at the third image? Just a minute, says the judge. The first image is Ms. Heard's bruised arm. There is another image of more cocaine and a Bible. It is the third image I want you to look at. Have you got it? Yes, I have it. I would say at the bottom, F894.005. It does on yours. It does not on mine, but I can add it, says the judge. Mine does not say it. I believe it's the same thing. If we go over there to that page, that photo, well, let me just describe the image. That is you, is it not? It certainly looks like it is, yes. And do you appear to have passed out? I appear to be sleeping. Passed out, I am not sure. There is a bed, is there not, to the left of that photograph? Yes, there is. You do not appear to be sleeping in the bed. You appear to be sleeping on the floor. Yes, ma'am. And you are fully clothed? Yes, ma'am. Your shoes are not on, it is right to say. Yes, ma'am. Your head is really, well, it does not look in a very comfortable position. Would you agree? It is hard to tell. Everything is very black, but it looks like there is something here, like a long, like a cushion from a bed that my head is resting on. You can see it starts from just above the knee and goes over. It looks like my head is on a cushion. If you have a look at the next page, you will see it looks like less like a cushion on the next page. In fact, on the third page, you can see it as a solid object. It is solid. Can you see that? I'm sorry. I'm unable to distinguish that it is a solid object. I do not know what it is. If we look, if you look at it on the judge interrupts. Is this the object that has the CONNFUCK? No, that is Mr. Depp's sock. Oh, right. If my lord goes to the first of the three photographs, it is just below the first hole punch immediately to the left of Mr. Depp's arm or elbow, at elbow height. That is what you are talking about. Is it, Mr. Depp, that object? Yes. Honestly, I cannot tell what it is. No, I'm just trying to see if it is possible. That is what you were talking about when you said that you thought that there was a cushion or something. When I look at the photograph, that is the only sense it made to me. Yes, the only sense that it made to me. It would be sensible if you were deciding to sleep on the floor fully clothed to have a cushion under your head. I accept that. Yes. Do you accept, having looked at photograph 2, which shows that object more clearly, and photograph 3, that it appears to be a rectangular, solid object rather than a cushion? I'm afraid that I cannot. You cannot accept that? No, I cannot just see that. You cannot see, fair enough. But you can accept that it is you on the ground in that position. Yes. For the avoidance of doubt, if we go behind each of those photographs, we see the metadata of those photographs at about the level just below the first hole punch up. Which of the three photographs are you asking about? Asks the judge. Ms. Watts responds, the metadata is on the same position on each, and all three are taken on the 18th of July, 2013. Do you see that, Mr. Depp? I do. And there has been no challenge of that metadata, so we can be sure that that was a photograph taken of you on that date. Now, you said in your witness statement that in July 2013, you had another 5-day stint in rehab, and you had not been drinking prior to the release of a film that you had done. Shall I read the whole passage because you took issue with the phrase or the word rehab yesterday? If you would. It is paragraph 24, my lord, of the second witness statement, but I will read it out. What you said is, quote, I remember that before the release of The Lone Ranger in July 2013, end quote. So that is when the photographs were taken in July. So we are talking about the same era, okay? Yes. She continues, I had another 5-day stint in rehab and had not been drinking prior to the release of the film, end quote. So that is true, is it not, that you had a 5-day stint in rehab? They were your words, not mine, this part. But you prefer the word. I like to mix up my words up every now and again. In normal circumstances, no one goes to rehab for 5 days. They go into detox for a period of days. Rehab is normally 30 to 90 to sometimes 6 months. So I'm sorry if my difference does not agree with you. It is nothing to do with that. You took exception to the word, Mr. Depp. I'm simply saying it is a word you chose in your witness statement. Did you spend 5 days detoxifying in July 2013? I spent 5 days in the same hospital, same doctor in New York for 5 days. The same as the one you had done in, yes. That is Mr. Richards' establishment, Keith Richards' establishment. It is not his. It was someone who Keith knew, this doctor, and I had gone to Keith and told him that I was prepared to stop. I wanted to stop drinking and taking drugs. Yes, and he helped me to. All right. So this was the same place. This was basically Mr. Richards had recommended to you, and you spent another 5 days in July 2013. It is fair to say that in the summer and autumn of 2013, you very much wanted your relationship with Ms. Heard to work out. For the period I was with her, I always wanted it to work out, yes, and she appeared to want to make it work. I appreciate now you see it as an enormous hoax, but she appeared to, yes. She appeared to? Yes. There are many of these texts that indicate, let us just look at one over on page 11, since we're in the same part of the bundle. You say to her in the fourth text down on page 11 of the text, have you got that? Yes. You say, the only reason we go for the throat is love. That is you to her? Where is this? I'm sorry. The fourth text down. The fourth text down. The only reason. Okay, yes. The only reason we go for the throat is love. Was that a reference to the fact that you would hold her by the throat when you were enraged from time to time? No. She says, my throat is yours. And you say, I have other uses for your throat, which do not include injury. And she says, you're going to be the death of me, but I don't care. You say, I am besieged with love for you. It's to the brim and will remain so. I'm leaving, but I will never go anywhere. I will never go away. But we need to stay the course and to help one another, not hit 95 miles an hour in 3 seconds and go for each other's jugulars. We need to be stronger than that. Did you send that text? Yes, it seems so. It seems from that text that you were going to be away. You spent a lot of time apart, did you not, with your various film commitments over the time you were together? Sometimes there were significant times apart, yes. And when you were apart, she would want to do things with other people, see other people, go out with other people, socialize, yes? Yes, sure. And did this occasionally make you feel insecure? Occasionally, yes, it did. Because, I mean, we can go through it if you like, but there is a long series of texts over the next few pages when she asks whether it would, well, she told you she was thinking about going to an Arctic Monkeys show in a small venue with somebody from the cast of something, and she must have been working in, and his girlfriend. And you found it made you feel uncomfortable, and she agreed not to go. This is my summary of the texts. We can go through them if you want, or alternatively, you can look at them over the short adjournment and then tell me when you have had the opportunity to read them, whether you agree or not. Shall we do it like that, Mr. Depp? The texts go from page 11 to page 14 before you and Ms. Heard, and it is what I'm going to call the Arctic Monkeys series of texts. Do you want to look those over lunch and then tell me whether you have, you think I have summarized it fairly? If you like, yes. I don't want to waste the court's time. Oh, exactly. That is decent of you. Can I ask you again about another joke you cracked with Mr. Duders on the 11th of October? It is the last text on page 14. Just a minute, says the judge. Yes, I see that. Do you see that? Yes, ma'am. It is you to him saying, will you squat in front of the door of the master bedroom and leave a giant coil of dookie so that Amber steps in it and thinks it's one of the dogs? Primarily, Boo has a major problem. It'll be funny. Yes. Again, I think I described this as your lavatorial sense of humor. I think broadly, you agreed? Childish sense of humor, yes. We have heard about the dog Pistol that I mentioned to you before. Pistol had been Ms. Heard's dog from before she met you. Do you agree? Yes. And your mother took a liking to Pistol. She did not. Your late mother? My mother, yes, she met Pistol, yes, and she loved dogs. And you bought your mother a dog, which was called Boo. Yes. And Boo stayed with her mother for a while, but I think your mother gave her back to you after to look after. Basically, yes. So, I mean, essentially you had a dog called Boo, and Ms. Heard had a dog called Pistol. Yes. And Boo, I think, had gut problems. I think you said there she had a major problem in the text, yes? She was relatively new, and she was the dog was not completely house trained. Ms. Heard was training the dog to not make mistakes. Well, the dog Boo had a problem because Boo had eaten some hash, some cannabis. Yes. By accident? Yes. Quite a lot of cannabis, about an ounce. Would you agree with that? I would not say it was an ounce. Judge interrupts. Can we ask whether Boo had eaten some cannabis? Yes, yes. The puppy had gotten a hold of a little ball of hashish and just scooped it up before I could get to it. As a result of that, Ms. Heard was worried, asks Ms. Wass. Was she not? That Boo had some sort of brain injury. It was something she liked to say. Yes, she would say, oh, she would say it all right. I think we can leave it at that. Could you go to page 15, please? Yes. Again, it may be that we have reached a place, Mr. Depp, where we agree, but what I'm going to suggest to you is that Ms. Heard was quite regularly scolding you for drinking, knowing that you had a history of alcohol abuse, and she was really very strict. Hence the word lesbian camp counselor that you used. On one occasion, on page 15, you are writing to your sister, saying in the middle of page 15, she was a shit last night. Quote, she was a shit last night. No lovey-dovey note this morning, no message. She's young and dumb. I'm old and dumb. End quote. And then another text, quote, I made the grave mistake of asking if she would mind if I had one glass of champagne only. I had a half a glass with Christopher because that's what he wanted. I toasted him and sipped it. When she arrived at the Ritz, that made me feel ashamed, gross, sad, stupid, and diseased, end quote. This was really an indication of what things were like, was it not, Mr. Depp? If you wanted a small amount of alcohol, she was very worried that this was going to lead to other things, and it became an issue. And Johnny Depp responds, it was a way to control me. Oh, you think she was controlling you? I believe you used the word strict. She was very strict. All right. I am twice her age. Twice her age, and not quite twice her size, but quite a lot. Yes, I did not feel that lectures and berating or storming out because I asked her if I would bother her if it would bother her if I had a glass of champagne, and that she was already angry that I had half a glass of champagne with Christopher Lee. You see, Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard had seen alcohol turn you into the monster, and she did not want it to happen, and she would try to stop you drinking at all. That is why she had reached this position. Again, I cannot speak for her motivation exactly, but I can say that she was very controlling in that way. Very, very, yes, it was as if you were being reprimanded by a camp counselor. I'm sorry that I used that phrase with her. And it is, would you look at a text on page 16, dated October 29th, because the control, as you say, went both ways. It is the second text from the bottom. Yes. It is from you to Slim, which we know is Ms. Heard. It just reads this, quote, holy crack horse, no goddamn meetings, no movies. Why? Why do you deviate from our agreement? What species of meeting? Fuck it. Just tell me when you get home. End quote. Yes, I see that. Did you send that text to Ms. Heard? It appears so, doesn't it? If it is, yes. It appears that I did. It appears that I did, but I do not know what the meaning or the context. Page 17, then, another text. I would like to just deal with it. This is you to Mr. Duders. Yes. You were talking, it starts at the bottom of 16, the last text at 16. You send a text to Mr. Duders, and this is dated the 31st of October, 2013. Quote, Amber is extremely upset and we're dying. Do you want to speak with her while you're there and give her some perspective on me and what I am and what I am not? And Mr. Duders obeys. Understood. Yes, I will. You say, ask if she needs to talk. And Mr. Duders says, if it's not a bother, sorry. You say, if it's not a bother. Thank you, Mr. Sherborne. Then you say, thanks. She thinks that my Peruvian period has made me a monster and that I'm ruining the relationship. End quote. Yes. So the Peruvian period is a reference to cocaine? Yes, ma'am. Judge interrupts. Just a moment. Yes. Ms. Wass, the monster is the person you turn into when you have had too much Peruvian powder. Cocaine? She thinks that my Peruvian period has made me a monster and that I'm ruining the relationship. I'm referring to a Peruvian period. Did you send that text? Yes. Did you try to get clean after this? Mr. Sherborne interrupts. My lord, Ms. Was did ask a question. Mr. Depp was in the middle of answering it. Then Ms. Was just asked him while he was answering that, did you send that text? And then stopped him. I do not know whether it would be helpful given he was asked the question to be able to answer it. Judge responds, yes. Ms. Was, could you go back to the previous question? I'm afraid I'd forgotten what it was. Ms. Was responds, I think I have. Mr. Depp was trying to answer a question that neither my lord or I can remember. Perhaps Mr. Sherborne has the question? Mr. Sherborne, it is really his answers, not the question, that are important, as your lordship said, but at least he should be able to give them. In your question that I'm referring to, I'm trying to find where it is on the Peruvian period text is on page 17, says Ms. Was. Johnny Depp continues. Yes, I have found it. Thanks. She thinks that my Peruvian period has made me a monster and that I am ruining the relationship. So she is talking. I am talking about my Peruvian period. So it is a period in time when I was using cocaine. As I said to you yesterday, on occasion, and sometimes maybe it would last a couple of days or a few days, depending on how things were. But what I'm trying to say is your efforts to bring cocaine into every situation of our relationship is, I understand what you're trying to do, but I think it is important to acknowledge that I'm talking to him about my Peruvian period. You tried to stop taking cocaine, but you lapsed. This was a pattern, was it not? I did not try to stop and lapse. I stopped, and then if I felt like it, or if I was needed in some way, or if it was needed in some way, I would use it. And judge interrupts, just a minute. Your answer is that you not try to stop and then lapse, but if you felt that you needed to have cocaine, yes, you would take it. Yes, my lord. Right, thank you. Ms. Was continues. What you're saying in that text is that Ms. Heard thought that your Peruvian period, i.e., when did you take cocaine, has made you a monster. She thinks that my Peruvian period has made me a monster. Yes. Yesterday, you gave us a variety of interpretations of what the monster was. I suggested it was the rather dark side of your character, which came out under the influence of drink or drugs. Are you able to say, since you wrote the words in this text, what your definition of monster was there? Well, I did not say the monster in my text. I said a monster. What is the definition of a monster in that text, please? My definition is that my definition of it is that she thinks my Peruvian period has made me a monster. You would have to ask her. Well, you have written this word. Was she saying to you, you are a monster when you have taken cocaine? She would have said that I was the monster at any time it suited her fancy or when it suited her argument. And it was not the case. I am not a multi-personality. So I'm just telling him that she thinks my Peruvian period has made me into a monster and I'm ruining the relationship. So her constant harping on whatever I may have decided to ingest, she's saying, affected her more than it affected me, that I became the monster, she said. You became the monster after taking cocaine. That is just not true. That is what she is saying. That is what you are saying, she said. Oh, yes, that is what she is saying. Yes. If that is correct, and it is the interpretation that you have given to that text, how could Ms. Heard possibly have been involving herself in chopping up lines of cocaine for you as her habit was, as you suggest? It just not fit with it at all. At a certain point, it is just a lie, is it not? Excuse me? That was a lie. You said she was chopping up cocaine for you. She desperately disapproved of you taking cocaine. She saw that it turned you into the monster, and that is why you wrote that text. I appreciate your attempts to get that into cross. Mr. Depp, your comments about Ms. Wass's question, I understand, interrupts the judge. But what I want to understand is your answer to the question. Yes, sir, I understand. I apologize if my way of getting to the answer. Leave out the compliments to Ms. Wass's questions and just give me your answer. Certainly. It was Ms. Heard's belief that I became a monster. She was the only person that has ever brought that up. That notion that I am a monster when I drink, that I'm a monster when I took cocaine, that I'm a monster when I smoked marijuana, it was more than a concern of hers. It was a weapon, and it was used constantly. She grabbed hold of the word and held on, hell bent for leather, that it would stick. Ms. Wasson continues, this afternoon, just before we break for lunch, I will remind you of a text that you sent almost a year later, in October 2015. Judge, Ms. Was, if this is something that you be, if this is something that you be going to come to after lunch, then that would be a convenient moment. Can I take up Mr. Depp's offer that he reads the exchanges about the Arctic monkeys to see whether we need to spend more time on that? Mr. Depp, is that still an offer? Is that still an offer on the table that you would read those texts between pages 11 and 16? Certainly, yes. I will give you the summary again, and you can tell me whether I have that wrong. Thank you. Absolutely, thank you. Then, Mr. Depp, we will take a break now until 2:15. Yes, sir. All right, you will remember what I said. You must not talk to anybody about your evidence until the evidence is finished. Of course, thank you. We will say 2:15. Thank you. My lord, I'm sorry to interrupt the proceedings. I spoke to the court usher during the mid-morning break and indicated that I would be making a request to my lord, which I now make, which is that those of our legal team could have access to the court over the short adjournment. I know that the normal answer to that sort of request of the court staff is that it is not their policy because of security matters. The bundling in this case is becoming a bit more of an issue, and taking all of our papers out and comparing the bundles is going to be an enormous job. And there's not a room to do it in our room. If we undertake that the court will not be left unattended, i.e., one person from our team will be here at any given time, would my lord allow us to remain in the court until 2:15 in order to perform this task? Give me a moment, answers the judge. Ms. Was, you are understandably concerned about your papers. The claimant's side might want to have somebody in court, I'm sure, unnecessarily, but just to keep an eye on their papers. If somebody from the claimant's legal team is willing to do that, I see Ms. Affey has agreed. She is nodding. There would be absolutely no objection to that whatsoever. Mr. Sherborne, my lord, someone from Shillings will be here. All right, I am very grateful. Thank you very much, says Ms. Was. Judge, in that case, Ms. Was, I understand. Let me say, Ms. Was, to you and all other counsel, and indeed to other solicitors as well, that I'm extremely grateful to the care that I've been taken in presenting this case and for the references that are being given. I do understand that there are occasional glitches, and speaking for myself, I am not at all fazed by those. I am just grateful to you for the generality of the accurate references that I'm being given. Thank you very much, answers Ms. Was. Good, thank you. I will rise. Afternoon break. Well, well, well. Another day, another dollar. We are officially 3/16 done. You know, the thing that drives me the most crazy about the English system when compared to the American system? The constant need by opposing counsel, in this case, Ms. Was, the cross examiner, Johnny Depp, she's constantly hypothesizing. She even says the words, I will suggest that you were fucked up, and I will suggest that you this, and I will suggest that you hit her. I will suggest that and it's like, rather than asking a question, they make suggestions, which is way more powerful when you think about it. Because if you're a person like listening to the evidence, think about it. You're the judge, right? And you hear somebody say like, did you hit her? No, I did not. You'd never hit her. No, I never hit her. You never hit her. No, I did not. Okay. That's one. Okay. Let that sink in for just a second. Soak that up. Did you hit her? No, I did not. You never struck her. No, I did not. You never struck her with the back of your hand. Absolutely not. Right? Notice how that feels. Now let's change it up. How she used it. I'm going to suggest that you hit her. No, I did not. You never hit her. No, I did not. We have a witness statement where she says that she has been struck. Okay. And then she lays it on thick after that. And the remember that phrase, I will suggest that you hit her, hits a lot harder. Pardon the pun, but I just can't think of any other word to use there. He was constantly being accused of lying on the stand. Exactly, sweet one. And it's so infuriating. There's so much leading. Exactly. I guess I'm so used to the cross-examination here where you're allowed to lead. Leading is permitted on cross-examination, but there's a limit, you know? Like there's a limit. At some point, you just kind of have to take a step back and go, well, hold on a second. I am literally feeding like layers and layers of information. And Johnny sometimes just says, yes, because these are lawyers. Lawyers are trained to absorb information at an enormous pace. We are literally trained like we're sponges of words and information. Not everybody is like that, especially someone who had been in and out of drug use most of their life. Their brain is going to be affected to some capacity in their ability to remember things and their ability to recall things and their ability to answer questions. So rather than just being like we're taught in America, at least good cross-examining. I'm not saying everybody does it this way. Good lawyers, okay? Good lawyers will use the cross-examination technique that I like to call one fact at a time. One fact at a time. One question, one fact, next question. You never ask, because like if you ask a question after you went through the door, no, that's a bad one. Did you go through the door? And after you went through the door, did you answer the call or whatever? And objection, compound question immediately would come to mind, right? If a prosecutor were to ever ask that question like that. You came through the door, and then after you came through the door, did you answer the call? Objection, Your Honor, compound question. Here, we have compound question upon compound question upon compound question, and Johnny is just trying to like sort this stuff out, and then they just move on. They just move on because cross-examination, you don't care what the witness says. You have zero care about their answer. You are the one testifying. That's what cross-examination is all about. That's the problem. So when Ms. Was, has like full free reign to just bam, 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 the judge is over there sitting going, and then, Johnny doesn't even have a chance to retort, to respond to it. Am I suggesting that Elaine wasn't coherent? Your Honor, I'm trying. That moment will live in infamy. Exactly, Michael Stetson. Compound questions are bad because if you answer yes to the first part, they'll use that as an assumption you said yes to the remaining part as well. That's a huge problem. Rain Man says, question, in a U.S. court, what would be the objection that follows I would suggest? Objection, speculation. There has to be something. Yeah, objection, speculation. I would suggest, objection, your counsel is speculating. That's it. Your Honor, I would hypothesize, again, there's a difference between suggestion and theme. So for example, in an opening statement, I could say something like, Mr. Johnson was sober because Mr. Johnson was at a party and he had one drink 6 hours before leaving, blah, 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 right? And let's say Mr. Johnson never testifies. Well, my opening statement is not evidence. Yes, I was suggesting something. Yes, I was telling a story that was never later confirmed nor denied, but it wasn't speculation. It was the theme of the case. That's different. When you have in the middle of cross-examination, like I would never be able to ask the cop, like I would suggest that you failed to properly perform. Well, actually, I could say that you failed to properly administer the field sobriety tests. Um, yes, I'm speculating, but then I can get into why. But like, I can't be like, well, I'm going to suggest that you never graduated from high school. Well, again, that's another bad one, I suppose. But you get the idea. You get the idea. So I would suggest is objection speculation. Um, Linda Johnson, thank you so much for the super sticker. Well, folks, this was another 2-hour run. That was nice. We are, like I said, 3/16 done. So, no, wait, what am I saying? We're not 3/16 done. We're 3/32 done. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm having a lot of fun. It's my vocal cords are the ones that are having trouble keeping up. Everything else is peachy. That's why I have to keep drinking liquids. My yerba mate over here, my piss water. If y'all seen the color of this shit, I swear it legitimately looks like piss, but it's delicious. I'm not exhausted. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say I'm exhausted. I would just simply say that my vocal cords need a break. So anyway, we're going to continue on at some point. I hate marrying myself to timelines. As you can clearly tell, I cannot, I can't keep up. Like originally this was scheduled for like a Thursday and I ended up doing it today. So again, I apologize for nothing. Life is life. Na, 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 na. So things happen. I'm not complaining. Life is beautiful. You just have to take what you're given. Sorry, folks, but eventually it'll be a playlist in and of itself. You know, you're gonna have all of these in a nice little playlist. Definitely before winter is over. I say definitely with confidence because winter is here until like March. So if I don't get this done before March, I'm gonna be very, very upset. Like very upset. But I think we're gonna be okay. Shouldn't compound questions be stricken? Yes. Yes, Joanna. Even after the question is objected to, it's still out there and the witness has been given the clue. Yes. Absolutely. But again, this is the UK, so anything goes in the good old United Kingdom, apparently. All right, you all. Thank you all. I appreciate you being here. I love you. Kisses. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate. Happy Festivus for the rest of us. I think Festivus is today, isn't it? Happy Festivus. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I won't say Happy New Year just yet because I will definitely see you before the new year, I'm sure. And I love you all. By the way, those of you who have not seen it, yesterday Danny had Danny on Direct had a live, and she had a bunch of us on. Flux was there, potentially Criminal, Jeff, a few others, Ian Runkle, and it was a lot of fun. We really had a good time. So go check it out. I was there for maybe like an hour and a half or something, and she did volunteer to play Amber Heard when we're reading this transcript. I don't know if I'm going to go for that or not because it's just going to slow the pace down. But we'll see. Maybe when we get to it, I'll want to change gears and be like, hey, because she did offer, and but we're not going to get to Amber's part. I believe she's like on day 9 or something like that. Something like much, much, much later. So this is going to be definitely like January. We will not, there's 0% chance we'll get there before like mid to late January. So, yeah. So, okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. Hope you all learned something. Hope you all had some fun. And I will see you all very, very soon. Bye, everybody.